Man, welcome back. Getting this info. Story is crazy. Dale Cregan is crazy. Okay, let's go.
There was a lot of pressure put on various associates, family members. Clearly there was a huge number of rumours circulating. There was material on social media. Even to this day, there are people who will tell you that they knew where he was. We know that's untrue. It does show clearly that if you are determined to evade the police, if you are pretty skilled in some of those evasion techniques because of your previous criminal history, because of what you've been able to pick up about police tactics each time when you were arrested and convicted, because material is disclosed to you in the court process, then clearly that is an enormous challenge for policing and for law enforcement in general. Clearly we've examined a lot of our tactics since.
You couldn't go into Manchester city centre without seeing Dale Cregan's image, so his image was plastered across billboards. I remember vans with screens were being driven around with that appeal for information and Dale Cregan's very distinct image on these posters.
Despite a national appeal, a hunt involving many police forces in the UK and a reward for tens of thousands of pounds, weeks went by with no leads on Cregan or his associate Anthony Wilkinson.
He was on the run with Anthony Wilkinson. We knew that he had a number of people that had assisted him in the preparation of this crime and committing crimes, and so we had all of those individuals that we were looking for as well.
The search for both men stretched across the UK and Europe, but they still evaded capture. Until 3 weeks after David Short's murder, one man finally surrendered.
Who surrendered? I guarantee you.
It was fair to say that
I don't think Dale did it.
After Anthony Wilkinson surrendered himself to custody, that Cregan was the main player. He was the one that we feared would create the most problems for the communities and would create most problems for us.
Right.
We've been under huge pressure. It was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We put into place a number of measures in terms of trying to, quantify the risk. We had a lot more armed officers. We had armed officers from other parts of the country. But what we clearly couldn't do is just abandon normal policing.
This is
5 weeks after Dale Cregan had gone missing, Greater Manchester Emergency Services received a phone call from a member of the public complaining about damage to his property.
Someone just threw a big concrete slab through my back window now.
Were you in the room where it came through, or did you hear the bang?
No, I was upstairs. I looked out the window and seen one boy running out.
Is it a kitchen window that's gone through?
Yeah, kitchen.
Local police constables Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes were asked to go to the caller's aid.
They'll try and get up there as soon as, if there's a possibility, he's still knocking about.
All right then, thanks very much.
Okay.
I'll wait. I'll be waiting.
With the hindsight of knowing what that call was, it's incredibly chilling to know that was a man luring police officers to their deaths. He knew exactly.
So you mean to tell me this nigga is running away from the cops for 2 bodies that he caught already? He got out on bail and caught his second body. Now he's still on the run, and this is him on the phone luring the cops to him while he's acting like he's at a scene? Are you serious right now? No, this nigga is different.
What he was doing. Those police officers couldn't have had any idea of the danger that they were about to put themselves into. But the end of that call was absolutely chilling.
The 2 young officers drove just 3 miles from Hyde Police Station to the address in Hattersley.
So 10 o'clock, I was sat in the room, chairing the meeting, and we were discussing just various things around police in the division. And there was no knock on the door. The door just literally burst open, and one of the detectives from the CID, or from the investigative teams within Tameside, was stood at the door, and he just said, "Boss, you better come out. There's something happening at Hyde." And he didn't really know what it was, and I didn't know what it was, but you could see that there was something significant. Who was saying, I think it's something to do with Cregan. And I turned the radio on, hoping that this was just real positive news. I mean, in my mind, I was thinking this is good news, you know, that we've caught him or he's handed himself in or whatever. The police radio took just a few seconds to fire into life, and as it did, the words that came over the radio, I'll never forget. And it was one of the sergeants who was saying, "They're shot. They're shot. Get an ambulance. Get an ambulance." And I remember thinking that just doesn't make sense. And the radio came on. I heard the radio operator at the same time trying to call a call sign of Golf Mike 41, which was Nicola and Fiona's call sign, because the call taker had obviously realised that those officers had gone to an address in that area, but I don't think had made the link at that point, and I certainly hadn't made the link.
Damn,
The
man.
police operator got no response
What
from the two
fuck?
officers.
This nigga really off two officers?
And I remember saying to the sergeant, what's going on? And he just said, she's dead. She's dead. And I remember trying to speak to him and saying, who's dead? And the phone went off. And I rang the phone back immediately, and it was the inspector this time that answered the phone, and he said, Fiona's dead, and we're working on Nicola now. Cregan opened the door and immediately began firing this Glock 9mm weapon at Fiona and Nicola. No words were exchanged. He just simply started firing with this extended magazine on this weapon.
Fiona tried to use her
He used the same weapon. Oh my lord, boy. Dale Cregan is the craziest motherfucker I done ever heard in UK history. This is the craziest gang member, hitman, whatever you want to call this nigga. This is the craziest motherfucker I done ever heard of, boy. This nigga is using Glock 19s and extendo mags and throwing grenades at his ops. This nigga is ridiculous, and he's so crazy that this nigga faked a police call and had officers pull up to his crib, and as soon as they knocked on the door, he opened the door and just began to shoot them. Do you know how crazy bro, this is crazy. This story is crazy, man. This story is crazy.
taser gun to stop Cregan, but
bro.
neither woman stood a chance. Despite colleagues rushing to help, Fiona lost her life at the scene, whilst colleagues desperately tried to save Nicola. Before the help arrived, the perpetrator fled the scene, leaving the victims to die.
That's him?
We've then got Cregan, who'd driven to Hyde police station and had handed himself in. Did he have hand grenades on him? Was that police station now going?
And this nigga had the audacity to off the officers and go to the police station and then hand himself in. So this nigga did this for a last hoorah? What the fuck?
To get blown up with hand grenades? Was the vehicle that he was in, was that booby trapped with these grenades?
Nah,
Did
you
he still
gotta
have
think
the
about
weapon on him?
everything with this nigga, man. I ain't gonna
As an
lie.
officer rushed to arrest the murderer, the enormity of the situation was taking hold.
I've got one officer that an inspector is telling me is dead. I've got another officer that they're saying is working on. That was Nicola. What did working on mean? It seemed that I was just stood there forever, and almost as if I was looking down on the situation. And I feel in a way quite annoyed at myself about that, because you would think that you would know what to do. But I've said this many a time. We're just ordinary people.
We're just ordinary people.
We are just
bro.
ordinary people.
Just regular people, bro. Like, bro, that's facts, man. That's real life facts. Like, At the end of the day, it don't matter about that title. It don't matter if you a CEO. It don't matter if you got this much money, X amount of dollars. It don't matter if you have these type of assets. It don't matter, bro. We are all regular people. We all bleed the same. We all got emotions, bro. Real shit. Like, I feel for him, man. Like, you don't beat yourself up on that, bro. You work a real ass job that be into some shit, man. You know what I mean? This is crazy, bro. It's crazy. Excuse me.
It's not about medals. It's not about power.
I was driving home and then a phone call came up and it was an unknown number on my hands-free in the car. And it was this a DCI from Manchester. And he said, I need to speak to you. And then I could sense in his voice there was something. And I said, why? What's happening? He says, where are you? I said, I'm driving home from work. I'd seen Nicola the night before.
Oh, this is his
and I thought she said to me, I'm off for 5 days now. But she said, I'm on for 5 days now. Obviously, I misheard it. He said, where are you? I'll come and get you. I'll come and get you. And he said, there's no easy way of saying it. And he didn't actually say the words, but he just said, there's no easy way of saying it. And then the next, 2 or 3 miles were, I don't know, a blur, a nightmare.
Yeah. Damn, man.
23-year-old Nicola Hughes lost her life in hospital, despite desperate attempts to save her.
Nicola and Fiona were available to take the call because they were on duty that day. They took the call and because of it, they lost their lives.
As Nicola's family tried to process the devastating news, police rushed to contact Fiona's parents, 150 miles away on the Isle of Man.
We were sitting having lunch and we put the news on, and the headlines were 2 police women had been killed in Manchester. And fairly vague, but hey, Fiona's a police woman in Manchester. Should I give her a ring, should I not? And then there was a knock on the door. And that was it. So I opened the door to a police sergeant and a nice young police lady and said, we may as well come in then. Because we knew what it was about as soon as they knocked on the door. It was literally seconds of pre-warning. It really wasn't long. We were obviously fairly shocked. But, I mean, their faces were quite, this is not the news we wish to bring.
We'd called all of the team back in off the streets, and they were all sat in the canteen at Ashton Police Station. And we walked into the canteen, and they were all sat there. And as you can imagine, you could have heard a pin drop. And we had to obviously give the news and the devastation that created. That they just then to be informed that they'd lost 2 of their colleagues on, what had been just a call to a routine burglary or damage. Just the level of grief in that room was palpable. And then, of course, you've got to offer them the support. Clearly, they couldn't go back onto the streets.
Gradually, the horrific news started to make the headlines across the country, as everyone tried to absorb the magnitude of what had happened.
This morning, a week after the sad deaths of Nicola and Fiona, we held a vigil close to the place where they were attacked. It was great to see so many colleagues attend, but also particularly so many ordinary members of the public of the communities of Haddesley and Mottram.
I think it absolutely horrified the nation because this was the story of 2 young female police officers who were unarmed. They attended what they believed was a routine call-out, and because of it, they lost their lives.
It's difficult to describe how you feel. Obviously, if you're feeling numb, you're feeling shocked, you're feeling anger, you name it, every emotion you could think of is going through your head. I think it's just so easygoing. I think that was one of the massive qualities, that she was really easygoing. She was so wise, she was intelligent, witty.
She moved to Manchester, where she became a special. And she enjoyed being a special 3 or 4 nights a week, or whatever it was she did. and she really liked it. So from the special, she tried joining the police force, and eventually she did. She liked it. Anything that was a bit risky, dodgy, or could upset anyone wasn't told to us. We only got to hear the good bits.
As the country was left reeling from the multiple murders, Fiona and Nicola's colleagues still had the burden of investigating the crime and piecing together Cregan's movements before the attack. And what came to light was more chilling than they expected.
Cregan held these people hostage with threat of murdering them and blowing up the daughter and all the rest of it. He allowed the occupant to go to work that morning, but had threatened to kill his partner and child if he had called the police. Cregan reportedly had said he was sorry that it was women and he wished it had been men. I want to make the point that Cregan saw those officers walking towards that address and had a number of opportunities not to engage with those officers. And if you look at Nicola, who was 23 at the time, who just looks like a child, and Fiona, who was 5'0", you could see that these were two individuals that actually were not going to pose much of a threat to him in any case. So this business about wishing that it had been men is nonsense.
If it hadn't been Nicola and Fiona, it'd have been somebody else. Nicola wasn't normally crewed with Fiona, so that was purely random. And it was just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time.
The loss of both women brought the country to a standstill.
Another reminder of the incredible risks and the great work our police service does, and my thoughts, and I think the thoughts of the whole country, will be with their families at this impossibly difficult time.
Man, what is going on, bro? Come on, dude. My fault, y'all. Hold on, bro. Like, bro. Damn it, man. Gotta find that shit again, bro. Let's see. I'm so sorry, y'all. Dale Cregan. Because they want to give me a long-ass ad. Like, come on, bro. What are we doing? Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, y'all. Bro, come on, dude. What are we doing? Load up.
Villains and bad guys make the most amount of people tune in.
The craziest family in the world.
Wrong time.
The loss of both women brought the country to a standstill.
Another reminder of the
phone, man. Continue, bro. Jesus Christ, man.
Standstill.
Another reminder of the incredible risks and the great work our police service does, and my thoughts, and I think the thoughts of the whole country, will be with their families at this impossibly difficult time.
This is Maria. She's a AAA member, so she has peace of mind. This is...
Do you expect your children to plan your funeral? You don't expect to plan your own children's funeral. So it was really strange.
2 weeks on from the murders, mourners line the streets of Manchester to pay their respects to Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes.
I mean, it was a horrendous occasion for me, but support we had leading up to it, and then on the day, it made you soaked it up, you soaked the energy up from people. Even though it was a sad occasion, obviously.
It felt like the country stopped. Certainly Manchester came to a stop. And I can't tell you what it meant for our officers, just the, number one, the enormous support from our colleagues.
We were taken to Manchester Cathedral a few days earlier just to see what the cathedral looked like and meet the principal people conducting the service. And we thought, how are you going to fill this place? It's vast. And that came as quite a shock. The sheer number of people when you got outside the cathedral and all those people standing, bowing their heads, was amazingly humbling.
I remember on the day of the funerals, it was just desperately sad. I'd never seen Manchester come to such a standstill, and I think it was at that moment that it became clear that this had affected two families in that their lives would never be the same again, but also the wider police family.
As Fiona and Nicola were laid to rest, their colleagues struggled to cope with the tragedy.
I felt so responsible for their deaths, and still do. You try to reassure the public that you can keep them safe and look after them, and yet I was unable to do that for my own.
The divisional commander tried to resign, but was eventually persuaded to stay in his position. In 4 months, 4 innocent people had been murdered on the streets of Manchester. Those believed to be responsible, Dale Cregan and a number of his associates, had yet to be punished for their crimes.
Cregan gave himself up. He didn't want to be killed. And then there was an enormous investigation. And people may think, well, that's easy. You know, it's obviously him that did it. But you then obviously have to prove the whole sequence. We had to try and find out where he had been, who had sheltered him, who had supported him, all the other criminal associates that had been involved in the case. So there was an enormous investigation.
The level of security surrounding Dale Cregan's trial was unprecedented. He pleaded not guilty to any of the murders.
There were armed officers routinely deployed. There were armed officers on the roofs of nearby buildings and around the court. And it was clear that police were under no illusions just as to how dangerous this man was. 2 weeks into the trial, Dale Cregan decided to change his plea to guilty for the murder of the 2 police officers. Dale Cregan said that he murdered the 2 police officers because his family had been hounded over the months that he was being sought for the murders of Mark and David Short, and that this was his way of exacting revenge.
As the trial continued, he also changed his plea to guilty for the murders of Mark and David Short. And after 19 intense weeks, the jury found him guilty of all 4 murders.
That's like 80 years.
Well, at the end of the trial, Dale Cregan was handed a whole life tariff. Now, that's not something we see frequently.
What is that?
Cregan was given the most severe prison sentence available in the UK. And the other suspects, Luke Livesey and Damien Gorman, received life in prison for murdering Mark Short and the attempted murder of 3 of his friends. Jermaine Ward and Anthony Wilkinson were found guilty and given life sentences for their part in the murder of David Short.
If you take someone's life, then you deserve, you know, for the rest of your life, you're incarcerated, you're locked up. And that's what I think if I focused on that person, it eats away. It's like taking poison up in yourself and up in there dying. They don't.
Cregan has shown no remorse for his crimes since the murders. But despite the trauma suffered by the families, lasting legacies were formed in Fiona and Nicola's names.
You've got 2 choices in there. You can either give up, you can either go and hide yourself away, or you can carry on. You can pull yourself, and I know what Nicola said. She said, pull yourself together, carry on, get up and do something.
I'm gonna leave it right there, man. Lord Jesus Christ. Dale Cregan this is probably the craziest motherfucker I had ever heard in UK history, bro. This is ridiculous what he just did. This nigga caught 4 bodies in 2 months and was on the run. Man. Be sure to drop a like for the documentary. I hope y'all learned something today. I definitely did today, man. RIP to everybody mentioned in the video, man. RIP to every single person, man. Shit's crazy. Shit's not fair, man. Everybody deserves life. You know what I mean? Everybody does. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tap that link down below. Until next time.